those of you who I haven't already met, I'm Shannon Swilley Greco, Senior Program Leader at the in the Science Education Department at the Princeton Plasma Physics Lab. Science education is a little bit of a misnomer. We are much more broad than that. We're not limited to science or education. We're more public engagement and workforce development. Maybe someday we'll change our department title. But there's a long history, as you will see. I also would like to just pause a moment on this image. It is not a photo. It is an artist rendering. I was just talking to Michael at Ornell about how, like, yeah, we're a small national lab, I do feel like, we never have enough resources to do stuff. But somebody mentioned about like leaders just paying lip service to this work. I have to say our leadership is incredibly supportive. And this is the new building that's coming. And this is where we're gonna be. This is the entrance. So science education is gonna be front and center. I think we're getting some serious recognition that we deserve a very prominent space in the lab. So just wanna highlight, I love this. Some people don't like these little orange and yellow sticky outy things, but I think they look cool. So we are, as I said, we're the Science Education Department. We're technically under a bigger department called Strategic Development and Partnerships. We don't know what that means. So that's the thing. So Andrew got promoted, and they were like, I don't know, you can be. No, I think it makes sense. He does a lot of things, and so I think that strategic development and partnerships does kind of make sense given what Andrew does. There are a couple of other offices underneath that department, but two big ones that I would like to highlight are Science Education Department, us, and the apprenticeship program, which is actually more than just Diana. She does have some help, but our science education, as I said, misnomer, public education, public engagement and workforce development, is Dr. Arturo Dominguez, who is the head of our department. If you're watching this, Arturo, hey. He's a plasma physicist by training and has dedicated his whole life now to public engagement and workforce development and energy justice, among other things. I'm Shannon Swilley Greco. I've got a master's in science education, not a scientist. Didi Ortiz, also not a scientist. We only have two scientists in our group, actually. Didi Ortiz is our program manager. She's fantastic. Britt Albuquerque, also awesome. Our admin assistant, which we've only had an admin assistant for like 2 years. It's glorious. Have you tried this? So good. And Dr. Abdelmajid Kassir started yesterday. We just brought him over from France. He's also a plasma physicist, and I have never heard anyone talk so passionately about this kind of work. And he doesn't use all the buzzwords, which makes me really feel like he really believes this stuff, and so I love having him on the team. So happy to with this team. They're also the funniest people I know. Okay. All right, so who are we? This is so we're a Department of Energy National Lab, so for those of y'all who don't know. There are 17. We're a relatively small one. We're located in New Jersey. Before I started working, I didn't even know Princeton University was in New Jersey. That's where it is. There are national labs all across the country. Some are much bigger than us. But when I started, there were only like 400 employees, and now there are more than 750. We are growing. The workforce needs are growing. Our lab is growing. We're hiring a ton of engineers, if you know any engineers. All right. Our primary mission is fusion energy, and we do a lot of astrophysical plasmas as well, but now we're really getting into these microelectronics and quantum information science, sustainability science. I don't know, we have a quantum diamond lab. I don't know what they do there. They've got diamonds. It's quantum, I don't know. But it's new. I've only been on the tour once and did not sink in. All right. So, as I said, we've got these two main branches of the strategic development and partnership mission. So we got the science education mission. We're all about bidirectional, omnidirectional, I don't know, there's more than two, engagement with the public and creating pathways in the field and community resources. The apprenticeship program is slightly different. We're building a diverse technical workforce and supporting succession planning and expansion of the lab. So like I said, we're growing, but also our technical staff especially, I think when I started at PPPL, the average age of the employees was like 45 years old. We definitely don't have a young workforce in terms of our technical staff. A lot of folks are approaching retirement age, so we certainly have workforce needs in terms of that. So that's why the apprenticeship started. Look, these are all our new apprentices. That's Kevin Purdy. He's our first graduating cohort. Our apprenticeship is a 4-year training program, kind of as an alternative to a university program. It's where you don't go into student debt, you make money instead. It's a great alternative, and I love that we're highlighting career paths that don't necessarily involve PhDs or college even. And that's one of our teachers who participated in our teacher training program. Plasma ball. All right. Oops, that was the next slide. Okay. So just a little bit of history of how we got to where we are, because we do have a really long history. In the 80s, so some of you might have heard of, some of you might have even met Rush Holt. I feel like I talked to some people.
My
your wife
cousin is a rocket scientist.
Yeah. We had those bumper stickers.
Yes.
Our former congressman is a
Yes.
rocket scientist. It's not really rocket science. Close enough. But anyway, Rush Holt, also CEO of AAAS at one point. Big deal. Super supportive of science education and community engagement. And so he started that in the 80s with Trenton Partnership. Trenton, for those of you who don't know, is very close to Princeton. Princeton, Ivy League school in an affluent community. There is a huge Spanish-speaking population there, but certainly not high income. But not that far from there, 20 minutes away is Trenton, which most of the population lives at or below the poverty line, and their high school hasn't offered AP Physics in like 5 years, and they are so close to us. So even from the start, we were working with Trenton. But I like to highlight this quote about starting one of our longest running programs that started in 1984, Science on Saturday. This is a quote from Rush Holt, the community program for science education. He wrote a Science on Saturday lectures that are still going, illustrated Fred Dilla, a guy who started that program with him. Continual interest in what science and society owe each other. So it started with that understanding that there is this two-direction communication and that we work together, and it's not just us giving to them or or us taking from them. There's this back and forth. So I like to highlight that it's been there from the start. So these programs have been going on for so long. They've really become part of our institution. And I think that does contribute a lot to our success, but it maybe also contributes to some inertia and resistance to change. So they have become a tradition. Science on Saturday, that program, like I said, been running since 1984. Some people have attended like every single one of them. In fact, one of these people, oh my God, Ruth the Truth is what we called her. She celebrated her birthdays there. She just died this year, and she went to almost every single one of them. She's like 94 years old. Magic. But all of these things really did give us a name in the community, just these long-running programs and being so open only on Saturdays, because you can't just walk into PPPL. When we do have these public events, we do clear all the security. It's a little more open. But it really did give us a name in the community, and we get like high school interns, undergraduate interns, applicants saying, I went to your Science on Saturday when I was in middle school, and now I'm back for more. So it does some good things. We really developed a lot of goodwill between the community and the lab and employees. In recent years, we've been more focused on internal engagement programs also. So I was telling some of y'all at one of the breaks about one of the programs we do called PPPL What We Do. And the idea is, it really started right before Thanksgiving a few years ago, where it was like, okay, so you're going home, you're a non-technical staff, you're not a research scientist, you're gonna go spend Thanksgiving with your family, and people might ask what they do at your place of work. Hey, you just started this job at PPPL. What do they do there? I know they have a good answer for that. And they feel connected to the mission of the lab, and they feel like engaged, and they feel like they contribute to it, and they're great ambassadors for us, and it really does give us a lot of inroads into community organizations. They tell their church about us, they tell their scout group about us, and it really does give us some exploratory paths to the community. And it does earn us a lot of goodwill because they feel really great about where they work. Likewise, bringing our daughters and sons to work day, like the national thing, we participate in that. And so Science Education Department had always run this like really big event with that. We've moved towards a model where we're really incorporating lots of other departments as well, so that everybody feels like it's not take your kids to science. work, it's take your kids to your work. And so I think that that does a lot to, again, make people feel proud of where they work. And it's really working great. Actually, that's my kid, look. He's eating liquid nitrogen ice cream, big surprise. That's the big finale. Actually, Francis made a liquid nitrogen ice cream, right, at that event. All right. And we do a lot of community events, but internal and external. Oh, I didn't. Okay. All right. Whoop. I won't vomit all of the information about all of our programs, but this is everything I could think of, and I'm probably forgetting things. I've highlighted in orange a couple of the ones that I want to talk a little bit more about that involve our new approaches to building partnerships. That QR code takes you to, because it's fun, and you can do it now. Well, don't do it now, do it after my talk. But RGDX is a remote blow discharge experiment. And you can control an actual live plasma experiment in our lab. It's a physical thing in our lab. It's like a glass tube. Have you seen it? It's so fun. So you can control the pressure of the air inside the vacuum vessel. You can control the voltage of the electrodes on either end. You can make a plasma, and you can manipulate it with the distance between the electrodes, and there's a magnet around it. And you can do all these experiments from any device. And it has been hit from like every single continent on Earth, even Antarctica, and Google Analytics does not acknowledge that. But we sent a former postdoc down there. She was doing research down there anyway, and while you're down there, check out RGDX. So she did, so we got a hit from Antarctica. Sort of by cheating. I don't think there's any native Antarcticans working. Penguins. Another thing you could do right now, it started yesterday. We've got this Intro to Plasma Infusion course. These are all this year's speakers. And then look at all these hits we've gotten. So we have registrants, not just like people who popped in, but actually registered for this course in all of these different little markers on the map. We started doing it virtual in the pandemic, and it works so well, and it's a great entry point. It used to be only required for our undergrad interns during the summer, but it's really gotten us a lot of attention and traction with people all over the world. People hear about it, then they want to pursue other opportunities. So it's a cool way to get us some international recognition and attention and interest in our work. And it's free. Yay. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about like our collaboration. So we're leaders in a few collaborative efforts, and then we participate in others. See, like JNIPER, we're here right now. That counts. So the leadership roles that we have. So we have Arturo Dominguez is a PI on a Renew grant. So there's this whole Renew. I don't remember what Renew stands for. Sorry, I'm really bad with acronyms, numbers. Don't ask me for things like that. But Renew Pathways to Fusion is a collaborative sort of decentralized center to help collaborations and build research capacity at other institutions. That's a cool example. I'll tell you more about that. PlasmaNet is like a little baby JNIPER. So we definitely draw on JNIPER resources a ton for that, but it's plasma specific. And I'll tell you more about that in a sec too. PPPL IAEA practical arrangement. Oh my God, what a long title. Practical arrangement focusing on education, training, and outreach and fusion. That is a collaboration with the International Atomic Energy Agency. What it stands for? See, acronyms. But Katamari and Claudia were speakers at that at their Fusion Energy conference through that partnership. So that's how we paid for some of that. And we also have the U.S. Fusion Outreach Team, and of course we're very active in the APS Division of Plasma Physics Education and Outreach Committee. 4 of our staff members are on the committee for that, and we do a ton of teacher professional development and student day. We're doing school visits this year at every host city that DPP goes to. So it's co-located with the actual Division of Plasma Physics annual meeting. And we participate in a lot of it. A lot of the stuff is APS related, actually all the stuff that I've mentioned here. So I used to be chair of FOAP. Francis is chair now? Yeah, right? Past chair. QIP, if you haven't heard of QIP, I love QIP. So I've run QIP. So QIP is a conference for undergraduate. It used to be undergraduate women in physics. Now it's conference for undergraduate women and gender minorities in physics. Part of the gender inclusive community effort at APS. Love them. So I've run QUIP twice, PPPL in Princeton, and now I'm the chair of the National Organizing Committee. But if you have a QUIP location near you, get involved. It's fabulous. We've talked about like how you evaluate programs and like the metrics, and we were talking about sort of intangible and like the qualitative data that you might collect. And I have said about QUIP, if I cry, it's a great program. It went great because some of those stories that people come up to you and they're like, I was going to leave physics and now I feel like I found my people and I want to stay. And then you get like weepy and lots of hugs and it's magic. So highly recommend getting involved. And career mentoring has similar effects. Definitely check out the Career Mentoring Fellows program through the Careers Office at APS. There we go. Okay, but I want to talk a little bit about where we were in our history and where we are now and what's changed. And this is our approach to partnerships. This is our change in mission. We've shifted to, just advertising what we do and making more PhDs. We've shifted towards workforce development for sure. I mean, there's a clear need in fusion and plasma, but STEM in general, of course. So we're working on workforce development in terms of training, internships, all that. And we're also developing pathways that don't require a PhD. As I mentioned, the apprenticeship. I love that QUIP is, when they give their statistics and presentations, a lot of times they cite that like 6 out of 100 students in Really? How do I fix that?
Is the laptop still on?
Yeah. Help. They highlight that 6 out of 100 in a Thank you. What did you do?
I stood near it.
Oh, that's
Some sort of magnetic radiation.
right.
IT placebo effect.
Uh-huh. Well, I usually break things when I stand near them, so that's what happened in the first place. They talk about how 6 people in a physics class of 100 would go on to be academic faculty, like a tenured faculty. And that's not counting some research scientists in national labs and stuff like that, but that's still a super small number. And you know that how many people actually went for their PhD with the intention of becoming tenured faculty. Mm-hmm. And also consider how many of those were women or racial ethnic minorities or some other marginalized group. How many of those 6 do you think, right? So
0.
Just, maybe. So anyway, recognizing that there are many other paths for folks to go with a physics background, we're recognizing that and we're working that into our programming. We really do have now a focus on building STEM identity in marginalized students. That is very, very important to us. And now I actually start all of my training for any kind of science communication or public engagement with, I don't really care if they walk away knowing anything about physics, as long as they walk away feeling like they could do it. I want folks to understand that they have a place there, and they belong there, and that includes the people doing the work, right? I know Claudia has told the story many times about how public engagement work really got her through some of the schooling that she did. I think that that's true for a lot of folks. It builds the people who are doing this work feel an increased sense of identity and feel like they belong when they get the opportunity to do these programs. And so we're also focusing on folks doing it. We also have a holistic approach to mentoring and professional development. We're not just throwing them in an internship and they do all the research and the science work. We don't just leave them in that. We have lots of activities to fold them into the group, make them feel part of something, lots of professional development, workshops throughout the summer, give those visiting interns opportunities to engage in this work too. Oh my God, sorry, time flies. But anyway, I think that there's also just this sort of general shift in the culture of STEM and STEM education. Origins of this shift, these are what I think might be going on. We ourselves, we're hiring people that just are personally motivated to do this kind of stuff. This is what we find exciting and interesting. I think the funders' priorities are also shifting. I think NSF has had broader impact for a long time, but maybe they're getting, I don't know, it's been a while. What do y'all think? NSF getting better about broader impacts and making it more meaningful? DOE has only had community benefits plans and these the peer plans, the prioritizing inclusive and equitable research for 2 years. I wish there was, they're working on it, right? It's new. I haven't seen great peer plans come out yet, but I think that people are improving. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where that goes, but I do think that there is a shift in funders' priorities. So I think that this stuff is getting prioritized. I think I told somebody the story that 10 years ago when I started at PPPL, in the first month, DOE decided that they were no longer going to fund K through 12 anything anymore. So they cut all of the teacher programs I was hired to run and all the high school programs I was hired to run. And I didn't know what I was going to run, and I started looking for other jobs. But then they were like, no, just do whatever you want. So now then I had like no particular guidance, and I could really explore other things. Since then, though, DOE has now started funding through the Workforce Development for Teachers and Scientists branch of DOE, the same who do Swilley and CCI, which is like the DOE version of REU. They have now started to fund some K through 12 stuff. So I think things are going in the right direction. And of course, there's a lot of good research out there, and people are understanding that and reading it, and it's getting more attention. So I think there's a lot of research on what contributes to persistence in STEM, what are the workforce needs, and the importance of DEIA. Okay. I do not have enough time to talk about all this stuff.
There you go.
All right. So we're focusing on building a few key partnerships, and I think this was kind of the topic of the previous breakout sessions. We have this history of these organic connections leading to partnerships. We weren't super well known, so we didn't get a ton of leads, and so we just kind of went with whatever came to us, and we had the bandwidth to do that. Now we're getting like tons of leads, and we're growing and adding programs, and so now we really have to be a little more selective and intentional about who we engage with and why we're partnering with them. Who are we reaching? So I think we're leveraging connections of employees and students that students have come through our program. I think we're really kind of trying to tap into organizations and groups that bring something to the table, and we bring something to them, and it's really needs-based and equitable partnership-based. It's really about where we can make the most impact rather than, I don't know, it's my kid's school, I'll just go there. We're doing more than that now. And I think a lot of this is about centering marginalized communities. It's about valuing contributions of subject matter experts. So we're not just partnering with school groups, we're partnering with consultants who know how to do this stuff. We're talking to, let's see, I guess a lot of consultants. So that pathways to fusion in particular, it's not just a bunch of scientists talking to each other, right? We're talking to folks who are consultants and on DEIA, for example. We're really reaching out to a lot of physics education researchers now and trying to fold those folks in so that we know what we're doing has some impact. And we are also formalizing a rubric to assess goal alignment and impact potential. So this helps us make difficult decisions about who to partner with, but it also gives us something to point to when somebody goes, why didn't you partner with my school group? Like, well, because it didn't align with all of this, and because we're maxed out, and we have something now to point to people when we tell them no, because we've had to tell people no so much more now, because we are just really beyond capacity. So this renewed pathways to fusion, I think, is great, and I wish Arturo was here to talk more about it because he really explains this much more eloquently than I do. But a lot of this is based on research from these folks from the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. So we're partnering with the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, and so this Healthy to Innovative framework really guides this. And I think this was primarily designed by these three folks. Commander Young McClear, the Dean Zamanowitz, and Captain Royce James, there we go. These are fantastic people, but this is like this decentralized center that I was talking about. And it's really about trying to support research collaborations between institutions. And we start by assessing their DEIA climate. And then we go through this, use this. This thing's so awesome, okay? So you see how diversity and equity and inclusion are like at the top? That means you have to do these things first, right? So psychological safety is the first thing. It's sort of like that hierarchy of needs, right? You gotta feed yourself, then house yourself, clothe yourself, and then you can actually learn and innovate and do new things. Same thing with so at the very, very tippy top is innovation. you can't get to true great innovation unless you have all of these other things in place, or at least it would be way better if you get all those other things in place. So I love that that's the framework that we're looking at, really everything that we do, but especially helping these collaborations form. And PlasmaNet, like I said, is a little baby Juniper. We started thinking about this around the same time independently of Juniper, and we were like, we need a network so that we can like gather all these physics education research folks and all the research practitioners who want to do this outreachy stuff, but not really outreach. We really want it to be engagement. And so we thought of all these things, and we wanted to develop this network, and we started pulling these things together. And then we found out about Juniper, and we're like, yes, what they're doing. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. So they have more resources than we do, and great resources. And so rather than reinvent our own, we are trying to leverage everything that Juniper has to offer as well, and promote it as much as we can because we love Juniper with all our hearts. But a lot of our focus is on, so we have a lot of folks that come into roles like mine that just have like zero training, and some of them have had to figure all this stuff out just for themselves. Wouldn't it be great if we could just be like, no, join your community, and now we can all learn from each other. We've worked some of this stuff out already. So I think that this has already been great. We've already had a mini conference and a couple of workshops, of which Juniper was a huge part. Look. There's Jessica, and there's Brian. There's Brian.
And looking at Michelle's cute.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. Which, by the way, I need a good QR code for the app because I keep trying to search Marvel's Plasma and it just gives me Marvel movies.
No E.
I know, but it, like Google's like, yeah, of course you meant to put an E in there. I'm like, no, I did not. But we definitely, I think a big need that was identified, especially in the plasma community, is develop and share impact assessment tools. I would love for y'all to share with me your actual like tools that you use, because I can't find them, but we talked to Brianne about this, and maybe Brianne's gonna help us out with that. I don't know, we'll see. But if you scan that QR code, you can join our PlasmaNet Slack. So do that. There's some good resources already there, but we'd love to have your input. Again, we are valuing subject matter experts from all areas. You don't have to be a plasma physicist to be in this. We'd love to have you. This is a good program, and it's a great example of a partnership. So I like to talk about this. This is one of those things that WDTS is funding now in the K through 12 space. Not all people who received this WDTS Renew grant for summer schools did high school level. A lot of them chose to do undergraduate level, but the option was to do high school, and they're all very different. But it's a 4 to 6 week program in the summer. So we chose 4 weeks as a pilot with Trenton Central High School again. We found that our high school internship, which is a little bit of a misnomer, it's a pre-college internship. It's right after they graduate high school and right before they start university. That internship really attracted folks from very highly resourced schools, students who had private tutors and, did all the robotics clubs, and they participated in Science Olympiad and Science Bowl and blah, blah, blah. We wanted to expand access to that. And so many students at Trenton especially just did not even see our internship as an option for them, and we wanted to change that. So this grant gave us the opportunity to address all the barriers that we saw stopping folks from even considering us as an option, such as transportation to the lab. Like the lab is not accessible by public transportation, so we're busing them. Meals should be provided. If it's a free lunch school, it should be a free lunch program. And paying the students so that they do not have to make the choice between participating in an enriching STEM experience or working to support their families during the summer. We've explored a little bit of this in the past, so these are some of like the precursors to that. This is a partnership with North Star, where their school actually had outside donors and they contributed to like Uber passes or whatever to get their students to our programs. But a big shout out to, you need a champion and you need a great contact in these schools. Jessica Massena is the head of the STEM community at Trenton Central High School, and this woman has worked tirelessly to get these students into this program, make sure that they did all their training and filled out their forms. And amazing. So there are good people at these schools. You just got to find them, and sometimes it's a little tricky. So it took us a few years, but now we're great. Building buy-in, that's what the topic of the discussion is later. So some food for thought. Support from funders is essential. Duh. But also, the fact that the funders are maybe shifting their priorities is a great sign that you can maybe get, if you've got funders saying that this is important, that leads all of the employees or the staff scientists that get the funding to believe that this is important. It comes from the top, right? External and internal programming to build visibility and goodwill. Recognition, right? We've all talked about recognition a ton during this this summit. So recognition, saying thank you a lot. We don't have a whole lot of ways in the science education department to give recognition. But I'll just jump real quick to the last bullet point. For the first time ever, we are paying grad students to do some of this stuff. We wrote it into the grant, and they said yes, which is really surprising, but I'm thrilled. So now through the Student Employment Office, we can pay graduate students to do this. And I even found a way to get it to kind of apply to other programs. Oh wait, it's being recorded. It'll be great. Anyway, but we have tried to address a lot of sort of institutional issues that we face. In particular, advocating for new policies that allow us to engage in these impactful, equitable partnerships. Expecting a school to send students with meals is just sometimes not very reasonable. So we're trying to figure out ways to fight these policies, get money to pay for things that normally are not allowable costs. We fought recently we have a student STEM ambassador. She lives in California, but she recruits for us. She was hired as an employee, and so we wanted her to come to one of our events at our site. And they were like, well, she's an employee, so we can't pay for her travel to PPPL. We're like, that's a dumb policy, so we got it changed. So we already have a good track record of changing policies. It's working, so push. But champions are great. All right.